All right. Hello, everyone. How is it going? Unfortunately for the U.S. military, the situation seems to be getting more complex and more complicated in the country of Niger, Africa. Now, I've been covering this for a while now. We're going to keep covering this because it doesn't seem like anyone else cares. But the U.S. military has been operating in Niger, Africa for almost 20-ish years now, maybe a little less, boots on the ground, about 2002, 2003-ish. And we're there to fight the common enemy in the Sahel region of Africa. The Sahel region is probably the most dangerous part of the world when it comes to these militant groups. They account for 48% of attacks in the world. So in Sahel, Africa, there are more attacks in this region than the combined attacks in the Middle East. So understand the U.S. military needs to be in Africa to fight the enemy. And if you're joining live, thank you for being here. I will post this video. So as of right now, the mission for the U.S. military has been sort of halted, if you will. All we can do is essentially drone operations. We can only be on the defensive. If the U.S. military feels like they've been threatened, we can defend ourselves. But beyond that, the issue is, as the U.S. military stays stagnant, the rest of the Sahel is literally falling apart left and right. And the next country that's probably going to follow suit will be Niger. And guess where the United States is? In Niger. So let's go ahead and let's remember what the U.S. is saying. This is the last update we got from the United States. At the time of making this video, it's about 5 days ago. This is what the Pentagon said. And it also gave us a little bit of insight of what we were doing. We sort of have a bit of an indication that we did have boots on the ground at one point.
Members of the military that are in Niger, all I can say right now is that we have not restarted counterterrorism operations. We are just flying ISR in order to monitor for any threats. And of course, we, as I mentioned last week, we are moving personnel and equipment from Airbase 101 to 201. And during that process, of course, we are wanting to make sure that our troops and our equipment is safe.
Okay, so that's all we got. We have what's called ISR. And in case you want the definition of what ISR is, it's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Now, ISR usually has to be used in a certain context. In this context, it is drone assets. Other than that, we don't know if the U.S. troops are leaving the wire. I highly doubt that because that is an easy implication that they could get attacked. And thank you again if you're joining live. If you like this, please like this live stream. It helps out a ton. And of course, I will be posting this for all you guys. Now, here's what the issue is. As the United States sort of hunkers down and is on the defensive and is doing reconnaissance, that's great. That's better than nothing because it also shows Niger that we are willing to help Niger. We are there and we're going to continue to invest in Niger through military assets. Not so much like through economy. We've always helped Niger with humanitarian aid. We've always helped with drones, stuff like that. Whereas the French, they're being held hostage right now because they don't want to leave the country. And we'll get to that in a second. But here's what the problem is. I mean, it's like every single time you look this up, you have worse and worse situation throughout the Sahel region. Now, this is in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso now is in the news because they have been attacked. And not only that, the people who attacked them posted all over social media what they got from Burkina Faso. And this is all relevant because Burkina Faso is boasting that they're willing to send troops over to Niger. How can Burkina Faso send troops to Niger if this is happening to them? This is all their captured equipment. This right here is the big one. Those things look nice. Those ain't Harley Davidsons, though. Again, thank you for being here live. Please like the live stream. Helps out a lot. And not only that, this is in Mali. That is a drone used by Wagner Group. So now as Mali and Burkina Faso fall, and you start to have evidence posted all over social media, even though the United States doesn't work with them directly, they sort of do in a very weird way. The U.S. military will never work with Wagner or Russia in Africa, but the reason why they do work together is because they're both fighting the same people, but they have different interests in the region. Russia, Wagner, they want money, they want natural resources. The United States, we are there to ensure that the region doesn't become so disastrous and destroyed that all of Africa becomes an issue, and then we're going to have to go in there when it gets worse and worse. The issue is it's getting worse and worse as we speak. Now, as far as Burkina Faso goes, who is now like best friends with Russia, if you will, Burkina Faso just signed a new legislator on Tuesday, approved a law authorizing the dispatch of troops to neighboring Niger, which faces threatened military intervention to restore civilian rule following a coup. I don't know how much more proof these countries need that their coups are not successful right now, because you're about to see a staggering stat here soon of how much of an increase there have been in attacks. This is a new law in Burkina Faso. They can send a military contingent to Niger for a 3-month renewable period. Understand this, these countries are still in ECOWAS. Like, they're still a part of a coalition of African nations who are supposed to be working together, fighting together, and supporting one another. But now all of a sudden you have a country who just made their own law saying we can deploy troops in Niger. Well, guess who else is in Niger? The U.S. military. You see why this is becoming an issue? Even if the U.S. military doesn't work with Burkina Faso, even if the U.S. military doesn't work with the Russians or Mali, they do work with them. Because now they're about to be coming into Niger, and you have militant groups who are just spreading throughout the region. Now, I made sure I wanted to verify this stat, but I found this on Twitter. Interesting statement here. Recent developments further spotlight the increase in stability in ECOWAS, with armed groups intensifying their attacks and further stretching the limited resources of these nations. Very valid point. These nations have very limited resources, even within their militaries. For instance, the city of Lier in Mali recently fell into the hands of rebels, signaling the growing inability of governments to curb insurgencies. Burkina Faso also gained a surge in violence, 40% increase. Now, this is also very ironic. I wish I could play the audio on this, but we'll get in trouble. So I can't play this audio. Let me try to at least give you a better visual here. This was all over Wagner social media, how they're hyping up going into Mali and they're going to protect Mali. Oops. They made a video looking like the beginning credits of Call of Duty. This is a POV cam. Now, there was nothing verified as to when this timeline was, like when they made this video in Mali. But again, remember, Wagner is a hype machine. They're a business machine. They have to do whatever it takes to make it look like they're doing the right thing and doing great things, but they're not. I mean, you literally have Wagner technology and Wagner equipment stolen, and you also had a Wagner fighter who's been ambushed. We'll get to that in a second. And again, I cannot play the audio to this clip because I'll get copyrighted on YouTube. I just wanted to show you the visual of how Wagner a few weeks ago, again, was boasting how, oh yeah, look at us, we're in Mali, when things are getting worse. Now, here is the aftermath of these attacks that happened in Mali, going from Burkina Faso to Mali. It's crazy now how these rebel groups, they used to just like hide in caves and you never hear about them. Now they're all over social media. Like, they post. They have like government documents and official documents showcasing what's happening. Apparently, they took out 35 of the Malian army. They took 6 military prisoners. 2 planes were taken out, and all armored vehicles were destroyed. And there were, quote-unquote, 8 martyrs, which means 8 of their own guys were taken out. The bad guys were taken out. Now, again, the irony behind all of this is that everybody in the African region of the Sahel, we are all fighting these people. However, Mali cannot work with the United States because they're working with Russia. And again, to bring it back to the main point, if this is happening in Mali, this is soon to follow suit in Niger. Because if Niger pushes the United States to a corner, the United States already said they'll leave. The only reason why the United States is still there is because we have bases, drone bases there, air bases, and we've been training with Niger for a long time, and we have a pretty decent relationship with the junta. So again, this right here can definitely travel over to Niger real quick. And this video showcases, this was actually posted, I think, a day or two before the coup, and it showcases what we're actually doing in the region. actually training the troops. Not going after uranium, not going after natural resources, training the troops to fight the enemy.
These special ops soldiers in the West African country Niger, trained by U.S. troops, practicing door-to-door clearing operations, preparing for a fight against Islamic extremist groups.
They fight together over the same land.
Lieutenant Colonel Ian McConnell is the special ops commander in the region.
One of the key lessons that we've taken from the last 20 years from the U.S. perspective is how can I partner with forces who are in a fight for their existence?
Any questions?
Now, this right here is the bread and butter of the U.S. Special Forces. And again, U.S. Special Forces have been there pretty covertly. We only heard about them in 2017 because of a failed operation. This is what they do. This is the success of the U.S. military's operation in Africa. All this hard work will all be destroyed if France doesn't figure it out, if Burkina Faso comes into Niger, if Mali comes into Niger and we have military intervention. All this hard work is over. Because now, unfortunately, all these fighters who are fighting in Niger were trained by the United States. I don't think the United States wants anything to do with that. So again, the reason why I'm showing you this clip is so that you do realize there were boots on the ground, or there are boots on the ground, where soldiers are putting their lives on the line to actually train these guys to fight a common enemy.
Nigerian forces trained by U.S. military rangers and Green Berets on finding and disarming roadside bombs, clearing houses, and firing their Kalashnikovs, and preparing for casualties.
And this right here was a massive reason as to why the junta actually really respected and really loved the United States, because they were actually putting their blood, sweat, and tears into their country. So that's honestly the only reason why the U.S. military is still even allowed in Niger. But again, don't be surprised if in the coming weeks we find out the U.S. military needs to pack up and leave. If there's a military intervention, 100% they're going to leave. And beyond that, as the U.S. military stays stagnant and just waits around for nothing to happen, it's a double-edged sword, because now you have militia groups, rebel groups who are running around Niger creating more and more chaos, because even if the U.S. military uses their ISR assets or their drone assets, they can't do a thing about it. Unless, of course, the U.S. instigates themselves getting attacked, which is illegal, and they're not going to do that. There's absolutely nothing we can do about it. So, yeah, in my opinion, U.S. military, the situation is getting worse and worse every day. The longer there's a junta, the longer that ECOWAS doesn't do some sort of peace plan, the closer we are to the U.S. military either leaving Niger or having to deploy more troops to figure out how we're going to re-secure the region. Because we're already seeing in Mali and Burkina Faso, within a month, you have 2 cities taken over, you have Wagner fighters being taken out, you have areas that have never been attacked ever all of a sudden being captured or attacked, or there's chaos happening. So that's what's currently happening in the region. Other than that, you still have the French ambassador who's still being held hostage. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. Take it as you will. And the French, of course, are a major key component to this entire operation. Whether or not the French are going to figure it out, if France leaves tomorrow, the U.S. will still stay, but it's going to be even more complicated for them. So every situation I see, every situation that's been happening in Africa, it's just getting worse and worse for the United States. But they can't leave. They have to be there. That's where the enemy is, and we bring the fight to the enemy. That's how the U.S. operates. So, yeah, that's what's currently going on. If you guys want to help me out, please like the live. I'm going to post this video. Please like the posted video and go comment over there. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'm enjoying doing these updates for you. We're going to keep monitoring the situation, and thank you for everything. See you guys later. Love y'all.